Hello everyone, welcome to the Bodhi Academy. I am Mahanta and today we will continue the class 9 science chapter 6 tissues. In last video we have seen what are tissues. Tissue is a group of cells with similar structure and shape which work together to achieve a same function. We have also seen the two different types of tissues, plant tissue and animal tissue. In first video we saw under plant tissues the meristematic tissues which are classified into three types: apical meristem, lateral meristem and intercalary meristem. In this video we will see the permanent tissue. In this video we will see what the permanent tissues are. So permanent tissue is classified into two types: simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. So the simple permanent tissue is its function is usually the protection of the plant and providing support, and complex or compound permanent tissue are usually the conductive tissue, that is the phloem and xylem. Now let us begin permanent tissues. So these permanent tissue originate or arise from the meristematic tissues only. Now these meristematic tissue cells, they divide or differentiate and they take up a specific size, structure and function, and they form the permanent tissue. These permanent tissue cells then lose the ability to divide and form new cells. Now these tissues originate from the meristematic tissues, and different types of permanent tissue are formed by the differentiation of cells of the meristematic tissue. So the meristematic tissue cells differentiate to form permanent tissue. Now what is this cell differentiation? Cell differentiation is the process of taking up a permanent shape, size and function and losing the ability to divide. So this is called cell differentiation. Now let us see the characteristics of permanent tissue. So cells have lost the power of division, that is they cannot divide. So permanent tissue cells do not divide. These cells do not divide. Whereas the meristematic cells can divide. We have already seen this. The meristematic cells or meristematic tissue divides and initiates, or its function is to increase the growth or length of the plant. Then permanent tissue have definite shape, size and form. So as we have already read, these they take up a specific size or structure. Then they are differentiated cells and carry out a specific function. These will carry out a specific function or a specific role. Then permanent tissue cells may be living or dead cells. Now these permanent tissue cells, in some tissues they are living cells, and whereas in some other tissues, for example in xylem or phloem, dead cells are also present. Then they may have thick or thin cell wall. This also depends upon the type of tissue. Then the cells are large with vacuolated cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm, it usually contains a large vacuole. Then types of permanent tissue: simple, first one is simple permanent tissue and the second one is complex permanent tissue. So we will see simple permanent tissue first. So simple permanent tissue are made of structurally similar cells, that is these tissue are composed of one type of cells only. Now what this means is, in simple tissue, simple permanent tissue, all the cells present will be of one type only. They will have similar structure and function. whereas the difference between simple and complex permanent tissue is that in complex permanent tissue there will be different types of cells which will work together to achieve the same function. In this, the structure of cells may be different, but they will work together to achieve the same function. So in simple tissues, all the cells will be similar, their structure will be similar. So in simple permanent tissue, the first type is parenchyma. Now it is the most common type of simple tissue in plants. It is the most primitive and fundamental tissue, and in parenchyma the cells are living cells. They may be spherical, oval or polygonal. Then these parenchyma cells are usually have thin cell wall and are made up of cellulose. Then the cells are loosely packed with large intercellular spaces. Now in this parenchyma tissue, the cells will be loosely packed. They will have these large intercellular spaces between them. There will be these spaces present. Then there is a large central vacuole and dense peripheral cytoplasm containing a distinct nucleus. As we can see here in this diagram, there is a large central vacuole, a large cavity, and there is peripheral. Here there is peripheral cytoplasm present in the cell. They will also have a prominent or distinct nucleus. As we can see here, it has a prominent or distinct nucleus. Here also in this diagram we can see the intercellular spaces between the cells. Then these parenchyma tissue are usually found in the soft part of the plant, that is the cortex of roots, then ground tissue. These tissue is found in those locations. Then the function of parenchyma tissue is mostly storage of food. Then in some plants, these parenchyma cells contain chloroplasts. So as we know, chloroplasts are useful in the in photosynthesis or preparation of food in plants. So in some parenchyma tissue there is presence of chloroplast. So these cells or these tissues, parenchyma tissue which contain chloroplast are called chlorenchyma. They have a specific or special name known as chlorenchyma. Then in aquatic plants, these parenchyma tissue cells may have a large air cavity which will help the plant to float on water. And these cells which contain air cavity or vacuole are called as parenchyma cells. Or parenchyma tissue. Then in some plants, the parenchyma cells may be star shaped. These cells will be present in star shaped, and in this case they are called as stellate or steel parenchyma. Then in some other cases, the parenchyma cells may contain lignin or crystals, some sort of crystals in the cells, and such cells are called, or such tissue is called idioblastic tissue. Then the second type of simple permanent tissue is collenchyma. Now this type of tissue usually provides flexibility and strength to the plant parts. Now in this also the cells are living cells. Then these cells are usually elongated cells, as we can see in this diagram. So they are elongated cells and they are thickened at the corners. So this will provide the this thickening usually provides the strength and flexibility to the plant. Intercellular space is very little. As we can see here in this diagram, there are almost no intercellular spaces. The cells are packed very tightly. Then function is it provides mechanical strength, as I already said. Then it provides flexibility to the plant, thus allows easy bending in various parts of the plant. Now this collenchyma tissue is usually present in the tendrils of the creepers or leaves, or in younger stems, which can be bent without breaking. Then the third type of simple permanent tissue is sclerenchyma tissue. Now the cells of sclerenchyma tissue are usually dead cells. These are usually dead cells. Now the cell wall is long and narrow, and these cells usually contain deposition of lignin, or they are lignified cells. Now this means that these cells will have, or the cell wall will have deposition of lignin, and this lignin is a substance or a chemical which kind of hardens the cell. Okay, it makes the cell hard in nature. Then the cell wall is very much thickened due to deposition of lignin. Then the cell wall is so thick that there is no intercellular space inside the cells. As we can see, due to the thickening, there is very little space which is left inside the cell. Now these dead cells of sclerenchyma tissue are usually present in the stem or bark of the tree, then in vascular bundles, and in the covering of nuts or seeds, for example walnut, then coconut, etc. So these are the three types of simple permanent tissue: parenchyma tissue, collenchyma tissue, and sclerenchyma tissue. Then the next type is complex permanent tissue. Now complex permanent tissue is usually the conductive tissue of the plant. This is made up of structurally different types of cells. As we have already seen, these may contain some cells which are tubular, some cells which are cuboidal, like that. So they have different structures. Now xylem and phloem are the examples of complex permanent tissue, and they are conducting in nature. That is, they will conduct water, nutrients, food from one part to other part of the plant. Here see the function: transport of water, minerals, salt and food materials to various parts of the plant body. Now the first one is composed of first one is xylem, and it is composed of 4 different types of cells, that is trachea, vessels, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. Now tracheids and vessels are usually dead cells. They are dead cells and they have thickened or they have lignified tubular cells. As we can see in this diagram, this is the trachea cell and it is tubular in shape, and it has thickened cell walls, thickened cells. Here vessels also, it will have a tubular structure or tube-like structure. As we can see, it has a tube-like structure and it has thickened or hardened cell walls. Then xylem parenchyma cells are living cells. These are the living cells in the xylem tissue. And xylem fibers are usually like these thin fiber like shaped cells, and these are also dead cells. So parenchyma is living and these two are also dead cells. The function of xylem tissue is the transport of water from various parts of the one part of the plant body to another. Then the next one is phloem. Now phloem tissue is made up of again 4 different types of cells. The first one is sieve tubes, then companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. Now sieve tubes are tubular cells here. These are the sieve tubes and they are again tubular cells. Now the end walls of these cells are usually perforated so that the movement of substances can take place, and it has these perforated walls, and this part of the sieve tube is called sieve plate. Then these cells do not have any nucleus. They do not contain nucleus. Then the second type are the companion cells. As we can see in this diagram, the second types of cells in phloem tissue is the companion cells. They are small elongated cells and they have a dense cytoplasm. And a prominent nucleus. Then the third type are phloem parenchyma. Phloem parenchyma are usually thin-walled parenchyma cells. They have a nucleus and cytoplasm. These cells are usually involved in the storage and transportation of the food material or the nutrients. Then phloem fibers. Phloem fibers are again fibrous shaped cells which are dead cells, like same as xylem tissue. Now phloem fibers are thick walled elongated dead sclerenchymatous cells, and these provide mechanical support to the phloem tissue. Then the function of phloem tissue is the transportation of food from leaves to the storage organs of the plant, okay, and then from the storage organs to the various parts of the plant body. Then the next part of the chapter is animal tissues. Now animal tissues are classified into 4 types: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue and nervous tissue. So first we will see the epithelial tissue. Now epithelial tissue usually forms like a covering to various organs or parts of the animal body, and also it covers the surface of the animal body. Okay, its function is mainly protective. It protects the animal tissues or animal body from outside surroundings from wear and tear. Let us read. Epithelial tissue covers the surface. It covers the surface and lines various tubes and cavities in the animal body or the human body. Then it is commonly called covering and lining tissue. Then the characteristics is that the cells are tightly packed. Now as we can see, for example, skin is an example of epithelial tissue, and in this all the cells are very tightly packed and they are in continuous sheet-like form. So all these cells will be continuous and there will be very little to no spaces. Then they have only small amount of connecting material between them and almost no intercellular space. Then this epithelium tissue is usually separated from the underlying tissue by an extracellular fibrous material. As we can see here, this is the epithelial tissue, and there will be some other tissue or other organ here, and these two are separated by a extracellular fibrous basement membrane. Okay, these two are separated by extracellular fibrous basement membrane. Now, the first type of epithelial tissue is again divided into two types, that is simple epithelial tissue and complex epithelial tissue. So, the first one of simple epithelial tissue is squamous epithelium. Now, this squamous epithelium is a very thin flat layer of cells which covers internal parts of the body. For example, the lining of esophagus is made up of squamous epithelium, then the lining of mouth, lining of blood vessels. In such areas, these squamous epithelium cells are present. These are extremely thin cells, as we can see in this diagram. These are extremely thin cells. See, they are very thin and they are flat cells. Then the second one is called cuboidal epithelium. In this, the cells are in the form of a cube, so they are called as cuboidal epithelium. They have a prominent nucleus, and these are usually present or forms the lining of kidney tubules, then ducts of salivary glands, like those. The third type is columnar epithelium. In this, the cells are in the shape of a pillar-like shape. Okay, they are in the column shaped, so they are called as columnar epithelium. These cells are usually present where exchange or absorption and secretions occurs in various body parts. It is found in the inner lining of intestines where absorption and secretion occurs. Then these cells facilitate the movement of such substances across the epithelial barrier. Now this columnar epithelium is further divided or classified into three types, that is ciliated epithelium. In these cells, the cells will contain small cilia-like structures, and this will help in the movement of small particles. These are usually present at the lines of fallopian tubes or respiratory tract. Then in some columnar epithelium tissue, the cells will be modified to form glands. So these glands will secrete some hormones or secretions. And such tissues are called glandular epithelium. Then the third type is sensory epithelium. This type of columnar epithelium will be modified to form sensory cells. For example, taste buds. Now we can taste because the taste buds have sensory functions. They can receive a certain stimuli and respond to it. The example is rod cells and cone cells. These are present in our eyes, and because of this we can perceive the images that we see. Then the second type of epithelial tissue is complex epithelial tissue. Now this is usually made from layers of squamous epithelium. The stratified squamous epithelium is a tissue where squamous cells are arranged in layers. As we can see here, it is arranged in many layers so that the organism can be protected from wear and tear. Now the skin epithelial cells are arranged in many layers to prevent wear and tear. Since they are arranged in a pattern of layers, the epithelium is called stratified squamous epithelium. So this stratified squamous epithelium is the skin tissue. Then the next type of animal tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue and nervous tissue, we will see in the next video. Thank you for watching my video. Please like, share and subscribe.